I've played Monster Hunter Wilds now for 11 hours, and I got some thoughts, so let's talk about it. Now, first up, probably the most pressing thing on everybody's mind is the performance. How is the performance of the game? As a lot of people have already been absolutely review bombing Monster Hunter Wilds on Steam for the performance issues. Now, personally, for me, the game runs like absolute butter. It ran like butter for me in the first beta. It ran even better in the second beta and the second weekend, and it runs just as good, if not better, in multiple other areas now that the game is actually released. Now, I am playing Monster Hunter Wilds on an NVIDIA 3080, the 10GB version, and I have a Ryzen 9 3900X, 32GB of 3600 MHz RAM, and I've been playing the game on all high settings with no ray tracing while also streaming the game at 1440p on YouTube. I can easily say I have run into essentially no performance issues, drops in frames, really anything. There were a few settings that I tweaked a little bit more, and ever since then, if there was even the slightest little hiccup or frame drops, those completely went out the window. Monster Hunter Wilds requires an NVIDIA 1660 with 6GB of VRAM at the bare minimum, and also an i5 10400 or a Ryzen 5 3600 processor. Now, when it comes to the recommended specs, it's the exact same thing for the processor, but the GPU jumps up to an NVIDIA 2060 with 8GB of VRAM or a Radeon RX 6600 with 8GB of VRAM. Now, obviously, not everybody has the exact same build. Not everybody has a 3000 series or a 4000 series. 4000 series is definitely pretty rare, and to be scrolling through Steam and seeing most of the people that have been reviewing the game for really bad performance don't even have an hour played, or they have less than 5 hours played, is really sad to see. It just doesn't make sense that you are immediately smacking a massive thumbs down on this game and just saying, oh, poorly optimized, it doesn't play good, it doesn't look good, it looks like trash, 2025, can't believe we're getting games like this. But I could probably put some money on most of these people are trying to run the game at 4K or the highest settings, and even possibly ray tracing. Most setups are not going to be able to run this game on that, and even if they could, do you really need to? My setup has the ability to run this game at the absolute highest settings you can possibly go with ray tracing, and I'm choosing not to run it at that because I don't need to run the game at that. I genuinely rather have a decently good image, a slightly above average frame rate, and be able to stream the game and hang out with my community. The cutscenes and everything already look absolutely fantastic at 1080p. Everybody is saying it's performance, and I can almost guarantee you they have not tweaked their settings to run this game better. Realistically, I know it's 2025 and you should be able to run 4K on a toaster, but please, gamers, lower your expectations just a little bit. You are fighting monsters with your friends. It doesn't need to be 355 FPS at 4K with ultra luminescent freaking ray tracing. Why? If that's how you want to play games, that's totally fine, but don't smack a negative review on the game because your computer can't handle that. Now, when it comes to the areas in Wilds, all four of the main areas are really cool. Of course, we've been well acquainted with the Windward Plains over all of the betas, and I'm actually kind of surprised how the story goes because you jump in and out of these places quite a bit. I was thinking that I was going to stay in these areas for much longer before moving on to the next area, but as the story goes, you're going to fight one or two monsters in the same place, and then you're going to move on to the next area, and then later you're going to come back. It's a pretty cool way to kind of unlock all four of the main areas pretty early and see everything and then jump in between them. There is an absolute ton to explore between the four areas. There's even more to gather, so many things that you can craft, and the views are absolutely beautiful. I'm definitely a fan of the Scarlet Forest, but I gotta say the Oil Well Basin and the Ice Shard Cliffs are really freaking cool locales. Now, when it comes to the new monster fights, I definitely want to say that they were well worth the wait. We only got to fight a few things in the betas, but dude, the moment you get to fight a Quematrix, you're like, oh dude, this is really freaking cool. And then from there, you absolutely take off. Since then, I've been able to fight a Lalabarena, a Congalala, a Rompopolo, an Anjarakan, an Uthduna, and even more monsters. It definitely feels like the pacing of the story is pretty good because you have have your beautifully crafted cinematics that the moment they end, they throw you straight into the gameplay, but then also in other areas where you have a cinematic that then turns into part cinematic, part gameplay, and it's kind of just a dialogue dump. You can skip through those. I have been skipping through those because, again, the main reason that I'm playing the game is because I want to fight the monsters and hang out with my buddies. So although I am paying attention to the story mainly through the cinematics, I am skipping the rest of the dialogue and I'm still understanding what's going on. When it comes to the crafting with Gemma the Smithy, I will say I'm a little underwhelmed that there is only one base animation for basically anything that you make, no matter what. I know that World kind of had the same thing, but I don't know. It just seemed like there was a little bit more oomph to it in World. Gemma kind of just grabs a small sheet of the same material, throws it in the fire, hammers on it, sands it down, and then she's like, oh, here you go. And then you have a wooden greatsword. So although that is slightly underwhelming, I will say the weapons and the armor themselves are absolutely fantastic. Some of the armor sets actually surprised me as well, as they do not look anything like the monster that you actually just fought. I'll avoid spoilers, but when it comes to something like the second spider monster you're gonna fight, once you actually see that thing and then you unlock its armor, you're like, wait, hold on. This does not match. But that armor itself looks so freaking cool. Now, I will say as a greatsword player, I know that greatswords exceed at raw damage. You're not really meant to build them into elements because they don't do all that much when they are based off of an element, but I will say that it was definitely pretty underwhelming to see how few monster trees the greatsword had compared to something like the longsword. But then again, that's just coming from a greatsword user, so if you don't use the greatsword, this doesn't affect you at all. And even with that, I'm still really happy with the greatsword trees. I would have just really liked to see more. Now, when it comes to getting people into your party, I haven't played with parties for an extensive period of time, but we did get quite a couple hunts in today, and I will say that nobody disconnected. There was no link party issues. There was no random game crashes. And yes, I have heard about the whole cutscene thing is back, but what we ended up doing is we would fight monsters we all had together, and we were just able to go straight into the monster, fight it, beat it, load up the next quest, and then if we wanted to continue our own story, we just went off on our own and did that, and it worked out really well. Now, being a day one Monster Hunter World player, I want to say that it is so freaking cool that I kind of get to usher in this new generation of Monster Hunters. Being here since the very beginning, over 7 years ago, and now being able to see this next main title come out truly is awesome. To everybody that is playing this as their first Monster Hunter, welcome. I really hope you enjoy it. This is definitely a massive step up because this is the first Monster Hunter that is truly crossplay. Your time is incredibly valuable, so thank you very much for spending any of it watching and or listening to me explain what my experience with Monster Hunter Wilds has been like so far, and I will catch you in the next one. Have an awesome rest of your day, hunters.